I always imagined that when I finally bought my first home, the moment would feel like a warm sunrise after years of storms, bright, validating, and full of promise. But on the morning of my housewarming party, as I stood in my empty living room, surrounded by the faint smell of fresh paint and new furniture, I felt nothing but the cold sting of betrayal. Because instead of celebrating with me, my own parents told me they wouldn't be coming. Why? Because my grown, perfectly capable sister needed groceries. Can you believe that? My sister's weekly grocery shopping was apparently more important than one of the biggest milestones of my life. And what makes this even more insane is that by the end of the day, this whole situation escalated so drastically that it ended up on TV. I'm not kidding. You tell me, was I wrong for what I did next? Would you have reacted differently? To even understand how everything spiraled that far, I have to take you back to the beginning, because none of this happened overnight. I grew up as the oldest child in a family that revolved entirely around my sister Anna. She was the baby, the miracle child, the fragile one, the one our parents always felt needed more protection, more love, more attention. I was the helper, the responsible one, the one who could wait just a little longer, understand better, be mature. I learned early that whenever there was a conflict between what I needed and what Anna wanted, Anna always won. It didn't matter if I had an exam, if I was sick, if I had my own struggles, nothing competed with my sister's convenience. For a long time, I told myself it was normal, that this was just what older siblings did. But what I went through wasn't normal, and it sure as hell wasn't fair. Growing up, I watched my parents bend every rule for her, but enforce every rule on me. If I came home late from hanging out with friends, even by 15 minutes, my mom would be waiting at the door with that disappointed look and launch into a lecture about responsibility. But when Anna came home at 2 a.m. because she was having fun, my dad would just laugh and say, "Let her enjoy her life, she's young." When I asked for anything, a new backpack, a school trip, extra classes, I always heard, "We'll see," or "maybe next month." But when Anna asked for something, even something ridiculous like a brand new dress for a party she found out about 2 hours earlier, she got it immediately. They would drop everything and rush to get it for her. The funny thing is, I didn't grow resentful at first. I think I just accepted it because I didn't want conflict. I thought that if I kept being patient, kept being reliable, eventually they would notice. Eventually they would appreciate me. Spoiler alert, that moment never came. Not even when I won scholarships, not even when I got my first job, not even when I spent years saving money like a responsible adult while Anna kept blowing hers on impulsive purchases and nights out. And certainly not when I bought my first home, which I worked my ass off to afford. When I finally got the keys, I felt this huge wave of pride wash over me. This wasn't just a house. It was proof that everything I did, every late night shift, every sacrifice, every time I chose responsibility over comfort had been worth it. I wanted my family to see that, to celebrate it with me. And I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be the moment where my parents looked at me and realized I was doing something incredible. So I planned a housewarming. I cleaned every corner. I decorated the place myself. I cooked the food. I invited friends, coworkers, and of course my parents and Anna. I even coordinated the timing so it would be as convenient as possible for them. Because despite everything, I still wanted them there. I still hoped. But the morning of the event, at around 9 a.m., I got a call from my mom. At first I thought she was calling to tell me what time they'd be arriving. I answered with a big smile on my face. But the moment she spoke, my stomach dropped. "Honey, we won't be able to make it today," she said, sounding almost annoyed. I froze. "What do you mean you can't make it?" "Well," she said, sighing like I was being unreasonable, "Anna needs groceries. She asked us last night, and you know how she gets anxious if she's running low on things." I had to take a second to process that. I repeated, thinking maybe I'd misheard. "You're skipping my housewarming for groceries." "She needs them," my mom insisted, "and she asked us for help. You know she gets overwhelmed." Overwhelmed, that word. That stupid word my parents always used whenever Anna didn't feel like doing something. Overwhelmed was the excuse they poured over every single responsibility they never taught her to handle. She was overwhelmed by cooking, overwhelmed by bills, overwhelmed by job hunting, overwhelmed by adult life in general. And instead of guiding her or encouraging her to become independent, they reinforced her helplessness. "She's 27, I said, trying not to explode. "She can get her own groceries." "You know she can't drive when she's anxious," my mom snapped. "And besides, a housewarming is just a symbolic thing. Groceries are necessities." I swear, for a moment, I couldn't breathe. Because that was the moment I realized something brutally clear: no matter what I achieved, no matter how big or meaningful the event was, it would always rank below my sister's smallest inconvenience. My accomplishment, one I worked years for, was nothing compared to Anna needing bananas and oat milk. I tried reasoning with them. I asked if they could go earlier or later. My mom said it wouldn't work. I asked if Anna could order delivery. My mom said Anna doesn't like delivery because the vegetables don't feel fresh. I asked if Anna could go with them after my event. My mom told me to stop being dramatic, for asking them to show up for something important to me. And then she ended the call with, "We'll come by some other day when it's quieter. Have a good time today?" She hung up before I could respond. I stood there in my newly purchased home, holding my phone, feeling this mixture of anger, sadness, and numbness swirl inside me. I couldn't believe it. They weren't coming. And not because someone was sick or there was an emergency, but because my sister needed groceries. I felt humiliated. I felt unimportant. I felt like a backup character in my own family story. So I started spiraling. My hands were shaking. My eyes burned. I had spent hundreds of dollars preparing food and decorations because I genuinely wanted to make the day special. I imagined my parents walking through the door, smiling, telling me they were proud of me. But all I was getting instead was silence and excuses, and invalidation. I paced around my living room trying to calm down, trying to remind myself that I still had guests coming, that the day wasn't ruined, that my parents' absence didn't erase the significance of what I had accomplished. But deep down, something inside me broke that morning. Not a small crack. It was something bigger, something final. It felt like the last straw after decades of being treated like I was less important than Anna's shopping list. My friends arrived, and they immediately noticed something was off. I tried brushing it off, saying I was tired. But eventually, after a couple of drinks and after they pushed me to open up, I told them what happened. I expected them to say I was overreacting. I expected them to tell me to calm down, but instead the look on their faces was pure disbelief. "That's insane," my friend Mark said. "Your parents skipped your housewarming for groceries." "They've always been like that," I admitted, feeling embarrassed to even explain it. "You deserve better," another friend told me. Like way better. Their reactions validated what I'd been feeling my entire life, but never had the courage to voice it. This wasn't normal. This wasn't okay. This wasn't something loving, supportive parents should do. But even then, I wasn't prepared for how far things would escalate later that day. Because after the party was already halfway through, after the drinks were flowing and the frustration inside me kept simmering, something happened that pushed everything into absolute chaos. And yes, it ended up on TV. But before I get there, I want to pause for a second and ask you all directly. If your parents skipped the biggest milestone of your adult life because your sibling needed groceries, how would you react? Would you be calm? Would you confront them? Would you cut them off? Seriously, tell me, what would you have done in that moment? When the middle of the party rolled around and my frustration kept tightening inside my chest like a coiled wire, I thought the worst part of the day had already passed. I thought the disappointment would fade once enough food was served, once enough laughs were shared, once enough distractions covered the sting of being abandoned once again by my own parents. But the universe wasn't done with me yet. The moment that changed everything came around 4 p.m. when my phone buzzed and I saw my sister's name pop up on the screen. At first, I wasn't going to answer. I genuinely didn't have the emotional capacity left to deal with her that day. But something in me, maybe curiosity or maybe the leftover urge to still hope for something different, made me swipe to accept the call. The second I heard her voice, I knew something was wrong, except not in the way normal people mean wrong. She wasn't crying, she wasn't apologizing, she wasn't calling to check on me. Nope, she was yelling at me. Full volume, unhinged yelling. "Do you know what you've done?" She screamed, and I pulled the phone away from my ear. Her voice was shrill enough to cut through the party noise. "Mom and Dad are exhausted. You caused this?" I blinked, for a moment thinking she was joking. "I caused what?" I asked slowly. "Why, she spat. "You made them feel guilty for helping me. They said you were being dramatic about your stupid party. My stupid party, my housewarming, my milestone, my success. Reduced to stupid. Something inside me snapped so fast, and so loudly I swear my soul heard it. I walked out to the balcony, away from my guests, away from the music, away from everything, and leaned on the railing while gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles went numb. "Anna," I said, trying to keep my voice calm even as it shook. "You do realize they skipped my housewarming for groceries, right?" For something you could have done yourself or had delivered. She scoffed. You know I don't like delivery. And I had a long night. I was exhausted. I asked them politely. And that was it, that casual, dismissive tone she used whenever she wanted the world to bend for her. She wasn't even aware of the impact her actions had. She didn't care. She expected everyone, including me, to revolve around her comfort. So you think they did nothing wrong? I asked. Obviously, she snapped. Groceries are essential, your party isn't. If you wanted them there so badly, you should have scheduled it for a different day. And that was when the full weight of the truth hit me. She genuinely believed her needs, not even needs, her preferences, were more important than anything in my life. She wasn't even pretending otherwise. She wasn't even trying to hide it. That conversation went downhill fast. She accused me of being selfish, of being attention-seeking, of trying to outshine her, as if my buying a house was some kind of competitive attack. At one point she even said, "You already have everything. Let Mom and Dad help me for once." For once. As if I hadn't been living in her shadow my entire life. As if they hadn't sacrificed every moment, every resource, every opportunity for her while I learned to survive on scraps of attention. I don't know what exactly triggered the final blow, but suddenly she said something that felt like a knife right to the heart. You should be grateful they raised you at all. If you cared about them, you'd understand that their priority is me. It always has been. And that was it. The truth spoken bluntly and proudly, as if it was some badge of honor rather than a confession of decades of neglect. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. I just quietly said, "Thank you for telling me that." And I hung up. I stared at the skyline, the sun slowly beginning its descent, and I felt something unfamiliar. Not sadness, not anger, not confusion, something deeper, a kind of clarity so sharp it almost hurt. My entire life I had been waiting for my parents to choose me even once. To see me. To stand with me. To show up for me, but they never did. And today made something finally click. They didn't forget me, they never valued me. I was convenient, I was reliable, I was background support. I was the stability that allowed them to spoil Anna endlessly without consequences. And once I realized that fully, completely, painfully, something inside me hardened into resolve, I went back inside, plastered on a neutral face, and kept hosting. Not because I felt fine, but because I needed time to think. My friends noticed I wasn't myself, but they didn't push. They knew me well enough to let me process. By the time the party ended around 6 p.m., I had made my decision. A decision that would trigger absolute chaos. A decision that ended up on TV. A decision that honestly I don't regret. The next morning I woke up to several missed calls from my parents. I didn't answer. I needed space, I needed distance. I needed boundaries I should have set years ago. So I sent them one single text, one line, one truth. I think it's best for me to take a step back from this family for a while. You would think I'd sent a declaration of war. My phone exploded with incoming calls, but I ignored them. I put it on silent and went about my day. I cooked breakfast. I cleaned. I breathed. But around noon, when I checked my phone again, I found something I wasn't expecting. Dozens of notifications. Dozens of screenshots. From friends, coworkers, even acquaintances I barely spoke to. At first I was confused. Why were so many people blowing up my phone? Then I saw the first message clearly. Turn on the news. My heart started racing. When someone tells you to turn on the news because while you are involved, that's never good. I rushed to the living room, grabbed the remote, and switched on the TV. And there it was, a live broadcast. A reporter standing outside a grocery store, police cars, an ambulance, people gathered around, and in the corner of the screen, my parents' car, and my sister, crying dramatically like a contestant on some reality show. My jaw dropped. The headline scrolling at the bottom of the screen nearly made me choke. What the hell? I turned up the volume. The reporter was explaining that earlier that morning, a dispute escalated inside the store between customers over limited stock. Apparently the store had run low on several staple items due to a delivery delay. My sister, who apparently decided to go grocery shopping again because she still didn't get everything she needed yesterday, had gotten into an argument with another customer, an argument that turned physical. An argument that involved my parents stepping in. An argument that someone recorded on their phone and uploaded online, where it went viral within hours. And then the moment that made my soul leave my body, the reporter replayed the clip. There was Anna, screaming at an older woman. There was my mom, yelling at the store manager. There was my dad trying to separate people. My sister was shouting, "Dio, how much I am? Get off, I felt the urge to sink into the floor. But it got worse. Because in the background of the video, behind all the chaos, some random voice shouted, "Hey, aren't these the people who ditched their son's housewarming for groceries?" The camera shook as people turned to look. Someone laughed. Another person said, "Seriously, they're causing a scene over this." And just like that, the entire internet connected the dots. Some neighbor must have known about my party. Someone must have talked. Someone must have posted about the situation. Narrative spread fast online, too fast. Within an hour, people had taken sides. Spoiled sister freaks out over groceries. Parents enable adult daughter. Grocery store meltdown family. The memes started, the jokes, the commentary, and the worst part. My parents and sister blamed me. Around 2 p.m. my phone rang again. This time I answered. "Are you happy now?"
My mom cried.
"Do you see what you caused?" I stared at the TV in disbelief. What I caused? My sister shouted in the background. "If you hadn't been so selfish yesterday, none of this would have happened." I almost laughed at the delusion. "Anna," I said slowly. "You say chi tok ti last bagi of four," she shrieked. "Ain't you? Can on ain't it? Oh, for what?" I asked. "What were you going to do with flour?" She hesitated. I wanted to bake something." I rubbed my forehead. "You don't bake." I made tea." She snapped like a toddler denied candy. My dad then grabbed the phone. "Son, your behavior is tearing this family apart." "My behavior?" I repeated, stunned. I didn't ditch anyone. I didn't start a fight in a grocery store. I didn't scream on camera. "If you hadn't guilt-tripped your mother, we wouldn't have been stressed this morning," he said firmly. And when your mom is stressed, it affects all of us. I felt a cold, hollow silence settle in my chest. They weren't just blind, they were delusional. They had created a world where Anna was always the victim and I was always the villain. And now they were so deep into that narrative that they truly believed this public meltdown, an actual news story, was somehow my fault. At that point, something in me shifted permanently. I no longer felt anger or sadness or even disappointment. I felt done. Completely, irreversibly done. I took a deep breath and said, "I love you all, but I'm stepping away, and I mean it this time." My mother gasped like I'd stabbed her. My father started yelling. My sister started screaming. But I didn't say another word. I hung up. I blocked their numbers. I sat down on my couch, turned off the TV, closed my eyes, and exhaled a lifetime's worth of weight off my shoulders. Over the next few days, the story continued circulating online. My parents were interviewed briefly outside the store and made themselves look even worse by insisting they were protecting their daughter from grocery hoarders. Even though the video clearly showed them escalating everything, people mocked them. The internet roasted them. The grocery store banned them. My sister received a fine for disorderly conduct. My parents tried contacting me through relatives, through emails. Through social media, I ignored every attempt, not out of spite, but out of necessity. For the first time in my life, I chose myself, and the peace that came with that decision was indescribable. I started sleeping better, eating better, living better. My home felt like mine. Not a place overshadowed by family expectations or judgment. My friends supported me. My coworkers supported me. Hell, strangers online supported me once parts of the story spread further. I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't the forgotten child anymore. I was just me. Free. And in the weeks that followed, I thought a lot about everything. About how long I'd tolerated being sidelined. About how many years I spent shrinking myself so Anna could feel bigger. About how many moments I missed because I kept hoping one day my parents would choose me. And as painful as it was to accept, the truth was this: sometimes your real family is the one you build, not the one you're born into. Sometimes distance is the only thing that reveals the dysfunction clearly. And sometimes your biggest heartbreak becomes the beginning of your healing. Looking back now, I don't regret anything. Not the boundaries I set. Not the silence. Not the distance. Because choosing peace over chaos is never the wrong decision. And if someone wants to blame you for their own bad behavior, that's not your burden to carry. If you watch this entire story unfold, tell me honestly, was I wrong for finally stepping away? Should I have stayed? Should I have kept tolerating everything just to keep the family together? Because I genuinely want to know if any of you would have done something different. And before I end this, let me say this clearly. If you've ever felt overshadowed, undervalued, or unappreciated by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, you're not alone. And you're not wrong for wanting more. Alright everyone, that's the end of this wild, exhausting, unbelievable story. If you were on my side through this whole mess, lucky this video. If you enjoy these types of stories, subscribe for more because I have plenty more coming. And seriously, drop your final thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you think about everything that happened. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.